As the most relevant figure in hip hop and rap music today, how do you, as the number one guy, idolize someone who idolizes you?
Now that the album rollout for Scorpion is done, now that the Pusha T and Drake beef is over, I found myself going back to the song Duppy Freestyle, a lot for some odd reason. And I'm wondering, even in the initial reaction I had to that song, I was always wondering why Drake seemed so angry. Like, he actually seemed a bit more passionate on that cut. And I was wondering why. It's like, Pusha T isn't the artist who Drake, I would say, had any resentment built up towards. So then I look at who Drake has described as his idols. And I look at people like Jay-Z, Kanye West, basically, and these are people who, if you have issues with, who slight you, shade you, or disrespect you in any way, you'd probably be 10 times more angry having worked with these individuals. Kanye's written for Drake and collaborated with Drake on projects. One of the things that inspired this video in particular is this older video where Drake is talking about his frustrations with Kanye West. Now, I was linked this video on Twitter, and the premise of it is basically Drake saying how he's a little bit annoyed and frustrated with Kanye for not getting back to him and not being able to work on his album. Something that Kanye, I guess Drake is alluding to Kanye saying that this wouldn't have been a problem earlier. The guy who's explaining to Drake is saying that it's competition. He's doing this because everybody can't eat. Now, that video was about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe. With this information in the back of my head, I'm instantly reminded of the situation where Kanye got on stage. He mentions that Drake was applying pressure, so the reason that Watch the Throne was created was to basically combat Drake's success. This is another power move against Drake from Kanye. Now, I'll go back to the Duppy freestyle, and I'm looking at it like Drake mentions how he could never have a Virgil in his circle and hold him back because he makes him nervous, referencing, Kanye and his friend in the fashion industry holding him back. So it shows a bit of Kanye's character. So when the song Duppy Freestyle starts out with, so if you rebuke me for working with someone else on a couple of V's, what do you really think of the dude that's making your beats? That means that much more. Because if you're going to come at Drake for his character, you would also have to come at Kanye for his character and his jealousy and his envy and his fear. So I'm interpreting Duppy Freestyle completely different now. Because initially I wondered what Kanye West had to do with any of Drake's diss towards Pusha T. I was wondering why he kept mentioning him when none of that, I felt, in my opinion, really mattered. I've done things for him I thought that he never would need. Father had to stretch his hands out and get it from me. I pop style for 30 hours, then let him repeat. Again, going back to this song, I'm looking at it and I'm like, I pop style for 30 hours, but I let him repeat, meaning I let him get all the airtime on the radio for songs that I helped build. A bit of a double entendre, meaning I let him take what I gave him, but I also let him have airtime by people replaying and repeating his song. Skip past the story of Addidon. This is not me defending Drake on his hiding a child nonsense. I mean, Pusha T had information. He exposed that information. This is, in my opinion, why rappers need side Bs, like really large, really big rappers, people like Drake, people like Cole, people like Kendrick, need a side B or a sidekick. Because Kanye having Pusha T on the Good Music label is pretty much why this whole thing happened. Now, I'm not saying that Drake or Pusha T doesn't deserve a response from Drake, but what I am saying is Pusha T and Drake aren't on the same level. Entertainment-wise, hits-wise, musically, they're not on the same level. So it would make more sense for someone like Kanye to reply to Drake, or Drake to reply to Kanye, as opposed to Drake to reply to Pusha T. Drake don't have nobody at OVO that's a good rapper by his side. He got R&B singers, Division, Party Next Door, Majid Jordan. I mean, that's pretty much it. He doesn't really have a lot of rappers, like people that rap. So he doesn't have a sidekick like Kanye does, like Pusha T can go to bat for Kanye, or Pusha T can come at some of Kanye's enemies and Kanye not really stop. Kanye producing the track Infrared, he was aware of what Pusha T was going to say before he said it. If Drake had a second in command at OVO, maybe that second could have went up against Pusha T, and Drake and Kanye would have never had to exchange words. But see, Drake overestimated his own star power and underestimated the effect of Pusha T, and decided that he could reply to both Kanye and Pusha in one song. And that came back to bite him in the ass on the story of Addidon. Tired of sitting quiet and helping my enemies eat. And I was wondering what that line was. I didn't think that Pusha T and Drake had this long time beef. So why would he consider him like this mortal enemy? And then you look at Kanye and everything that I've just explained up till this point, and I'm sure other stuff that's behind the scenes as well. Somebody that's doing all this to me, behind my back, to my face, to come against me, to stop my success and my progress, to halt me in some way. They can't be my friend, so they must be my enemy. Directing that at Kanye. And I'm thinking, like I said, during his album, why there's so many random subtle shots to Kanye. He just released a freestyle with a whole thing. There's so many shots and references at Kanye. More often than not, people that you've idolized and you have issues with can be people that you have stronger emotion against if you have an issue, which is why I kind of feel like Drake is so much more disappointed and angry at Kanye right now, because you're somebody I used to look up to and now you're shitting on me. Also, it's confirmed that Drake was in Wyoming before the whole album rollout with Kanye. So if this information is available, I completely understand Drake's frustration toward Kanye. But see, the average listener is going to take some of Drake's words at the face value. So when Pusha T replies with the story of Addidon, and he has one clear target, one clear motive, not to bruise but to inflict internal bleeding on Drake, it makes his verse and his lyrics that much more poignant, as opposed to Drake, who seems a little bit misdirected in where he wants to shoot. Drake's got one gun, one bullet with the Duppy freestyle and is trying to hit two people that are on two completely different sides of the room. It wasn't gonna work. Drake recently came out with the Behind Barz freestyle, where one of his lines is, "I know so much shit that I cannot expose. I keep it inside and I laugh on my own." If Jay Prince really does have information on Kanye, and Drake is aware of this information, and people behind the scenes are aware of this information, and he told Drake not to say it or do it, then this line makes a lot of sense. So while Drake is confirmed to have taken this L from Pusha T, I don't think Drake was actually participating in the fight that Pusha T was. In taking a shot at Kanye on the same track that he was trying to take a shot at Pusha T, he left himself open and Pusha T went in for the kill. Now, Drake mentioning Pusha T's fiance's name is what really brought on the story of Addidon, according to Pusha T. So Drake did bring the story of Addidon on himself, but I'm just saying that he really wasn't trying to go that hard at Pusha T, and I guess expected Pusha T not to give that same energy that he gave on the same track. I'm just here to say that I realize now that the beef was never actually between Drake and Pusha. It was always between Drake and Kanye. And I can assume the only reason Drake had a response in Duppy Freestyle was because he was just helping the good music camp with their music. This next line lets me know exactly how Drake looks at Kanye West when he says, "They want to link but they got no tunes, they too worry about selling out shoes." When I look at that line, I'm thinking that Drake is saying that Kanye not only has taken a dip in his music career because he's tried so hard to make a success out of himself when it comes to the fashion industry, but he looks at Drake's success in the same way that he looks at Nike, in the same way that he looks at, I don't know, Adidas, in the same way that he looks at, in the same way that he looks at a Ralph Lauren, in the same way that Kanye holds these people up to these high standards, and people that he seems to be afraid of, he holds Drake in that same standard. He holds Drake to that same level of a person that I would need to associate with in order to take this level of my art to the next stage. Because we look at Kanye, all of his frustrations happen to be about companies not giving him the money needed to start XYZ. And you can look at Drake as a company providing Kanye with the artistic motivation or some of the tools to get those hit singles, to get that hit music. Since Drake seems to reach that level so effortlessly, Kanye wanting Drake's help in that would make sense. So what Drake is alluding to with this line is, Kanye looks at me the same way he looks at Ralph Lauren. He needs me to get to the next level. But what Drake is saying is, I'm not like Ralph Lauren. I don't care about your fashion. I don't care about none of what you got going on. I'm here to make these hits. You can whine and complain and do all this other stuff all you want. I'm on the sick side. Kanye doesn't always come across like a jealous individual, but when he speaks of these other entities that are kind of in his way when it comes to breaking into that next level, he says things about them in a way that kind of denounces them or kind of limits their credibility in a way, or makes them appear as if they're the bad guy. Now, Drake's Behind Barz freestyle is incredibly reminiscent of UK drill, and if you listen to the song, I don't know, like Man's Not Hot from Big Shaq, it's literally like the same thing. But if you can get past past that and listen to some of the subtle shots that Drake takes and aims at Kanye in this diss record, you kind of see exactly where Drake is coming from in being a person that's trying to help, but also being a person that's stabbed while you're trying to bring someone up. Now, I'm not saying that Drake doesn't have envy in his heart, but I don't think he's really come across in that way. There are a lot of artists that Drake has worked with, helped, also taken from, but you know, I don't really think that he's one of those individuals to take someone and try to prevent them from moving forward in the way that Kanye was with Virgil, in the way that he seems to be with Drake, admitting that he made a whole project with Jay-Z to prevent Drake's star power, to not help him with his album after you said you would, to prevent his star power, to diss him and limit his credibility right after he helped you with your album, to limit his star power. But you don't do it because you know Drake knows that you're the person that he would likely have the issue with. So you use a strong MC that's nowhere near as popular, but definitely has that poignance and can deliver a finishing blow to an artist like Drake. And while he's distracted by you, bam, Pusha T in Drake's heart with a knife, twisting it, pulling it out, letting Drake bleed out. And Drake bled out in his album Scorpion. He bled out all over it, and it wasn't focused, it wasn't cohesive, it wasn't thought out, it was a miss. It really was. I mean, that's really all. I was just making this video because Drake's diss and who he was aiming at the whole time has become more clear the more I listen to his Duppy freestyle, the more I listen to Behind Barz, the more I've gone back and looked at my own comments even on Scorpion. His actual target has been clear this whole time, but since the public doesn't have, or they're not privy to that information, it's less likely for them to look at Drake's lines at Kanye as anything of relevance, because they're like, oh, Kanye didn't do anything to Drake when he has. Certainly doesn't change my mind on his whole child situation, and I definitely think Pusha T's diss was relevant and very impactful in terms of who Drake is as a person, but I think Drake was never really intending to make Pusha T his enemy. But as I said before, this is why Drake needs to reach out to artists who are stronger MCs to go against artists like Pusha T, because Drake is too big to be risking his career to take a shot at Pusha T. Like, he's just too big. There was no benefit. Let's say Pusha T never replied with the story of Addidon. We all would have just let it go and been like, all right, Drake did that. There wouldn't have been any benefit for Drake, even if he did just body Pusha T. There was no benefit. It didn't have the effect that Back to Back did, because Back to Back was one of those songs that was like a roasting session of Meek Mill, and it made social media go crazy for a while. With this, it was a little bit more, I would say, angry. There were less jokes. There was more real content within that diss record. So it wasn't a joke. It was actually serious. Drake was upset, but he had nothing to gain even if he came out on top of that beef, and everything to lose. So Drake, if you happen to stumble across this, sign a rapper very soon to handle the side B beefs, because you are an S-list rapper. You shouldn't be responding to C and D list rappers. I'm not saying Pusha T doesn't deserve it, because I love Pusha T, but in this context, you don't have anything to gain. That's how I feel. I feel bad for Drake in the way that the beef and how this situation occurred now, but it's out there, it's done. But I'm waiting for this life-changing information on Kanye, because apparently Drake knows, probably Pusha knows, a bunch of people in the industry know, Jay Prince know. I just want to know what is this information. It's been Shawn C. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. This was totally on the fly, and I really just felt this way. That's why I love having this channel, because any thoughts I have, I can just kind of spill them out, and you tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm right, or if you think I'm on to something or if I'm not. So it's been real. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. I'm out. Peace.